to go over today. Are we recording? Yes, we are recording. Okay. All right, everybody. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. Welcome to our class. Today we're going to be it's the second class in the Tutelary Spirits series of courses. Today we're going to talk about methods of contacting the tutelary spirit. Quick review. Last week we talked about what the spirit is, and sort of how it manifested across time throughout history. We traced its evolution throughout all of our. So basically, as long as we can find symbols that humans have put their experiences into to express their spiritual lives, you you have a record of like a human standing next to some spirit or taking on the form of like even our cave paintings and our ancient ancestors are painting pictures of humans taking on animal forms, right? We've had this spiritual connection to this other spirit that guides us. And there's no reason to think that this really was like a holy guardian angel or tutelary spirit that they were depicting on these cave art wall paintings. But there's no reason to think it wasn't either. You know, they were human beings too, and they were doing the same kinds of things that we do. And the brain hasn't really changed a lot in the last, I mean, as long as we can tell, for millions of years, for tens of thousands of years. We've had civilization for the last 10,000 years, but basically the whole time, the human experience has remained relatively relatable. You know, even though we have different times and different technologies, different political systems, different beliefs about what's right and wrong, different religions, different climates. The things that we appreciate as human beings, the things that make our experiences positive and negative, remain the same. We have to deal with the same types of issues. You know, in the 16th century, they had to deal with melancholy all the time. That was a big deal. Melancholy. This one of the things that this holy guardian angel was supposed to help with was your melancholy, the sadness, the depression of existence. You know, it was a grindingly tough time to be a serf. I mean, serfs obviously weren't going to be even worrying about their holy guardian angels, but everybody was having a really tough time of it. Life was difficult throughout the entire history there. So hang on just a second. Let me make some changes to my sound. I just realized that I can't hear anything for a reason. Well, it doesn't matter. I'll fix it some other time. Okay. So yeah, the human experience remains a constant across our history. So there's no reason not to imagine that these cave paintings that depict our shamans, our shamanic type, this spiritual leader that got in touch with the animistic forces of nature around it, or however they were experiencing it. You know, there's no reason to think that their experiences were that different than ours. We know that they had families that they depicted. We know that they were worried about food. We know that they showed spiritual journeys. You know, the chances are pretty high that they fell in love and had sex and babies. They had lots of penises that they were drawing on the walls, just like everybody else. You know, the whole thing that we're doing like now it's a continuation of the experiencing of life, you know. And if we don't understand that we're part of this continuation of the ongoing human experience, even though there is like evolution that's happening over billions of years and whatnot, or whatever, you know, the basic human condition remains pretty consistent across the last 10 or 15,000 years, and it's likely going to be that way continuing forward. You know, like all the stuff that we worry about with climate change right now, that's a big topic right now. But you know, just in the last couple of weeks, they've started baking carbon out of the air with renewable energy. It's a small step, but it's a step. And as the crises get worse, we can often expect it to get better for us. Okay, so anyway, Let's I'm sorry, I'm already getting off on tangents. But anyway, so going back to the very dawn of time, we've had this spirit with us, and magicians have always tried to work with this other spirit, in my opinion. We've traced it through Zoroastrianism, we traced it through ancient Greece, and we talked about the PGM, and we talked about the Aristotle, not Aristotle, Socrates's diamond and Plato's genius, and whatever that was, we've traced it through Agrippa in the 15th and 16th centuries, and in Agrippa and Obermelin. We talked about Crowley's Samek. Today we're going to talk about all those things in a little bit more detail. There are a lot of I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 methods of contacting the tutelary spirit that I want to talk about. So there's a lot of things to go over in today's class. So I didn't spend a lot of time writing it up because we're going to be spending a lot of time talking about it. Do take notes. Hold your questions until like the end of each section if you could, and then or no, don't do that. Just go ahead and type your questions in. But at the end of each section, try to like remind me to take a break so that we can actually get our stuff situated. So let me see. All right. So moving onward, without much more ado. All right. The spell of Nuthis is the first thing we're going to look at. This is PGM 1, 40 lines 42 through 195. One of the things I sent everybody was a link to the Greek Magical Papyri from the Betts edition. I downloaded it off of academia.edu. It's been scanned into there, and it's not the best version of things in terms of like searching, but it's a pretty useful version for at least looking things up. So if you want to turn to your emails, I sent out an additional materials link to everybody that I had on my class list there. So take a look at that if you want to follow along with it. So it's PGM 1, 42 through 195, the spell of Nuthis. Okay. So basically in this spell, let me have my, I don't, of course, let me pull this up. Sorry about that. Okay. Sorry, I had to reboot my computer before I started because I was tired of it dropping during the classes. So should have that part fixed, but I didn't have all my files open the way I thought I would. All right. So yeah, so I wanted to go over these spell of Nuthis. So basically the preparations for this are relatively simple. This comes from the Greek Magical Papyri. This is one of the first century spells that a sorcerer of the age, and this was basically at the same time that Jesus was walking around. So imagine the time of Christ. All right, these people dressed the way you would imagine people from the time of Christ. Think the life of Brian here, right? So these people are all dressed like people in the first century around Rome, and it was a funny thing happened on the way to the Colosseum. All the wonderful greats, the history of the world part 2, I think it was, or part 1. Anyway, in that time period, people who wanted to be magicians would do different rituals to get themselves assistants, and the assistant spirits would know all the things that the priests were taught secretly in the temples. All the gods had special offerings that were given to them. All the gods had special times to be given their offerings to get the special blessings of the gods, right? And the priests kept all this information to themselves. They did not share it with anybody. So the sorcerers who wanted to have the power of the priests without actually having to go through the priesthood and get the priestly caste's blessing on their works, wouldn't have access to the gods in the same way. So what they had to do was they had to go around the corners and around the edges. They would go out to the crossroads at night and approach the gods directly and beseech them directly for powers and for authority and for supernatural assistance and for spirits to help them in what they were doing. They would use sorcery to draw down the stars and the moons. I think I talked a little bit in the if you were in the class about the moon, about the Thessalonian witches who were well known for capturing the moon and drawing down the moon. One of the pieces of this rite actually brings up how they draw down the stars. So these sorcerers of the first century were well known for drawing down the sun and the moon and the stars as part of their magic. So anyway, that's sort of like what was going on back then. So this is like almost it's almost all too easy. But it's funny how when you analyze what goes into this spell and this ritual, the parallels to this and the Obermelin rite are incredibly interesting to sort of like piece together. Like you can see that they're obviously different intents, different entities, different, or not entities, but different systems of belief. But when you get down to the brass tacks of it, it becomes pretty obvious that it's you're accomplishing a very similar thing. You're achieving yourself. You're getting yourself a familiar spirit who's empowered to teach you amazing things. So yeah. So basically, this ritual it's very straightforward. I have done this ritual before, but I did it after I had got my HGA's name, so it's sort of like cheating. But I did have exactly these experiences. I did it as a more of a lark than anything else, and of course, I expected to have these experiences. Well, actually, at the time, I didn't. I thought it was kind of crappy. It was more of a test of it, of whether it would work or not, and it did. And I had all the right experiences, but I totally had been programmed to receive them. I did not really understand how this ritual worked until actually while I was putting it together for this class. I realized that some of my assumptions about it were wrong and that I had some things out of order in my previous ways I had expressed things about it, but I think that I have them corrected now. So when you're reading through this, do feel free to use it as is if this calls to you. But also know that I am not a scholar. I am a person with an internet connection, and I read through this, and every time I see it, I find something new. Read through it yourself. There's a guy named Fanislos. His name is Brian. He's a really cool dude and understands Greek really well. He's in our Facebook social circles. If you need help understanding Greek, he offers classes in Greek. I took them. They're college level Greek. Like he's taught. I think he's taught college level Greek before, but he definitely is teaching it to people, laymen, without having to go through a school. It's kind of expensive, but it's worth it. I was able to read the hymn to Aphrodite in the original Greek, and it was great. But there are resources that can help us out with this stuff, but do understand that this is all works in progress, and we might find a papyri treasure trove full of papyri next year that explains that all this stuff is completely like misunderstood because we were missing one part of it. But based on what we know as of today, this is my best guess of what to do with this particular ritual. And I think it's pretty close. I think that Jack Grail and I think Fanislos would probably also think that I was doing it right. I think that this is all in keeping with what a lot of people have figured out. And if you, oh, you know what? I'm sharing the wrong screen too. Dang it. Well, okay. Anyway, I'm actually just going to go ahead and share it again. So this screen that I'm sharing right now is the 6 names. This is actually a analysis of the stele of Jehu, and it actually we'll be looking at this a little bit more later. But this is the kind of thing that like is what I'm talking about. This is the exposure of internet researchers and scholars to the raw power of the internet and the academic resources that Betts had. We've got homegrown scholars digging into this stuff and finding all this information in it that is just incredibly great. And some of it's kind of like weird, and you can see where some of it might be kind of like, I'm not sure if I agree with that. But when you read through all of it and you get into it in really detail, you find out that holy crap, this is exactly right, and he's got to be right. Like, you figured out what the 6 names are for the Stele of Jehu, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But this is the kind of thing I'm talking about. So my presentation here on the Greek magical papyri and what the spell of Nuthis means and all this stuff. This is definitely something that we're going to you're going to have your own experiences with as you go along in life. So let's see if I can go back to Word without losing my. Okay, good. All right. So good. So this ritual, it consists of making your preparations. You go up to the rooftop of a building, and back then in the first century, all the rooftops were open. It was very hot. It was very warm in the Mediterranean, and it was common to sleep on the rooftops. They were furnished a little bit. They had a patio that you could actually hang out on. They're flat. It was comfortable, and it was normal for you to be able to do this at the time, and in the Mediterranean where this spell came from. So you'd go up on this roof, and you'd go up there. And your preparations were very simple. You just had to get clean, and you had to put on clean clothes. That was it. And you had to have a black Isis cloth and the head of a hawk, and later on you would need a myrtle branch, and you would need some specific incenses. So you basically, the whole ritual is you go up on a rooftop, you at dusk when the sun is setting, and you do a solar rite, and that's as the sun is setting, you say some solar stuff. You stand vigil overnight with this blindfold on, with a hawk head in one hand. And you're just standing there, and you're like blindfolded with your hawk's hand, standing vigil all night. And then in the morning, when the sun rays first start to peak, you say 7 times this hymn to Helios, and then that's your solar part. And then you have this vision of this, and you shake the falcon's head at it. And you have this vision of this falcon that appears before you and drops a stone. And then you pick up the stone, and you engrave a serpent. What's it called? The lion serpent, the chinobis. You put a lion-headed serpent on it, and you put a hole in it, and you hang it around your neck. And then that night you go and you say, when it's time to, when is that? It's you do the lunar ritual later. Like that night when the moon has risen, you face the moon and you say the lunar prayer wearing the stone, right? And then it's this, and you only have to say that one time. And the Greek is all in the workbook, so you can see what these rituals are. And then you make an offering of myrrh, and you hold the myrtle branch, and you shake it, and then salute to the goddess at the end of your lunar thing. So, and that's pretty much it. As soon as you've done that, you get this vision, and the vision is a blazing star will descend and come to a stop in the middle of the housetop. And this is where you're drawing down the star, right? So this is where you're doing the same magic that the Thessalonian witches were accused of doing. And you're doing this all by the power of Hecate, by the way. This is Hecate who's coming to your aid, and you're drawing her down because you're actually asking her for help, and she's leaving the sky because she actually wants to help you. So it's cool to do this. It's not like you're actually doing anything wrong. It just, people don't appreciate it because they're a lot of the people that believed the Hesiod myths were kind of had a lot of the myths were rolled very tightly up and shoved up their rectums. Very, very tight-butted individuals who were sort of prudish and Apollonian, I guess is a nice way to put it. They weren't a lot of fun to hang out with. They didn't have a lot of ecstatic situations. The sorcerer types like us, the people who are into the ecstatic mysticism and cutting corners and going around the edges of religion and getting our own experiences with the gods and not trusting what the government says about who Hecate is going to help based on what, I'll just go to Hecate myself. I don't need the middleman to like tell me how to worship my Hecate. I will worship my Hecate the way Hecate tells me to worship her. And if she don't like it, she'll tell me. I don't need you tell me. So that's the sorcerer's mentality about this stuff, right? So we go out and we get our own powers. We get our own assistants, and here, this ritual, we go up to Helios at for the solar part, and then at night we go to Hecate and we ask her for her help. So this is a combination of the sun and the moon, which I think is really interesting, because if you look at the Emerald Tablet of Hermes, also from a similar time period, it talks about how the sun and the moon, the sun is its mother and the moon is its father. And it's talking about the essence of this miracle of the one thing that descends to earth and empowers us, right? This spark of creative reality, it comes down into this existence with us, and then it rises up through the heavens, and then it returns in power, and that's how the universe is created. That's the Emerald Tablet, right? But here this ritual is tapping into that solar and that lunar aspect, those forces. When you look at the Thoth deck, it it shows the art card, right? That's, I can't remember what the art card used to be. Temperance, the Temperance card in the traditional tarot deck, or the art card in the Thoth deck. It's the card of alchemy. It's the card of where the two opposites are mingled together into one entity. It's the card of Mercury and the two-headed Hermes. The Mercury is the lord of Gemini, the twins, and the two-headed entity that rises up out of the alchemical process, when the masculine and the feminine have been balanced appropriately, and the red queen and the white king, or the white queen and the red queen, or whatever it is, when those masculine and feminine traits have been balanced and unified together, that's representative of that path, that unity of attainment of your knowledge and conversation with the holy guardian angel, right? It represents the path of Samek, which connects Yesod to Tifreth, and that art card is it actually says vitriol on it. Visit the interior of the earth, and through the rectification of the philosopher's and rectify, and then discuss something about the occultum lapidum. I can't remember what the I stands for. Vitriol. Anyway, you visit the interior of the earth, and there you rectify something, the lapidum philosophum, anyway, the philosopher's stone. But anyway, the card that represents that alchemical transformation and the attainment of the Tiferet consciousness, illumination, enlightenment, as it is in the Western. Not, I'm trying not to say Western, because it's not appropriate, but the European magical tradition, what we inherited as the mostly European Greco, like as Hellenism wandered its way through Europe and into the United States to where I'm at, on its way to me, that particular tradition, which formerly known as Westernism, we see that enlightenment, that aspect of knowing and wisdom and seeing the truth of things as being attained when we enter into that sphere of Tiferet, right? So in a lot of the traditions that came out of Europe of the 15th and 16th century, all the different traditions of Greece and Constantinople mingled together during the Enlightenment in the 16th century, and then out of that has branched a lot of the modern occultism that we practice today. And of that, we tend to see the initiation into the solar realm, or the solar sphere, as the attainment of enlightenment. It's when Helios shines his light on everything, and we can see clearly what the true truth is of all things, right? And it's not in the 19th and 20th century that got conflated with illumination and like the illumination of the Buddha, which it's not supposed to be the same thing. And in the previously European traditions, it was considered being able to see clearly what was hidden in the dark, and being at one with the source of all light in the universe, right? That's what enlightenment and illumination was about over in Europe. When the Victorian English, mostly the English, went to Tibet and India, they came back with understanding illumination in completely different ways, and they put them together and came up with this idea that when you get initiated into the sphere of the sun, you basically are as wise as a Buddha. You've attained consciousness with your Atman, and you're at one with the Aguiades. You're self-made perfect, and all this stuff. And you see that reflected in Mather's interpretation of Abramelin, but more specifically in Crowley's interpretation of Abramelin and what he put together with Samek. All right, so moving on, the solar and lunar thing, this initiation into the sun, it always takes place from the realm of the moon, and it's the mingling of the sun and the moon that accomplishes the great work and the transformation of the soul. It's and later on, I'll talk about how one way to see this is like you're capturing a solar entity from the shores of the moon, right? So you're sort of, and that's what Samek is all about. So anyway, after you've done the lunar rite, you receive this vision, and the star descends and comes to a stop in the middle of the housetop. And where the star dissolves before your eyes, you see a god, an angel that you've summoned has been sent to you. You take the hand of the god. You be not afraid. It says, and you get to know the god, and for like 3 hours you hang out and you feast with the god, and then he gets up and leaves, and you have a spiritual you have a young boy as part of your conjuration, and the young person is a pure person who's able to see the spirit and interact with it. And basically at the time they used a child scryer to they believed it helped you see the spirit, because you get so excited about things and you want to see it. It kept you honest. It made sure that you weren't seeing things that weren't there, but at the same time you got a really impressionable, vulnerable kid, and you put them in a scary situation, they're going to see things. So you're kind of like stacking the odds in your favor that you're going to get the result you want, but it's a nice way to confirm that it's not really all coming from you. So you got that situation going there for this. Later on in Abramelin, you also have another child scryer as part of the thing. So that's one of the things they have in common. So anyway, it talks in this ritual more about what the spirit can do. I think we talked about it last week, so I'm not going to go into it as much. Yeah, and that's basically it for this. And what you end up getting out of it is this entity that will serve you, that will know all the secrets of the priests, that will get the gods to work for you on your behalf, and will introduce you to other spirits and familiar spirits who will help you attain all the things that you desire in life, and also serve as your personal familiar spirit. So yeah, so that's the first one I wanted to talk about. The next one we're going to talk about here is the Stela of Jehu, the invocation of the headless one. So this ritual, it is not a tutelary spirit ritual at all. Okay, and the only reason it ends up on our radar is because of Crowley, which is okay with me. I'm not complaining. But so I'm going to go over it because it threw me for a loop for a long time. And while I have since come to appreciate it, there was a time where I thought that I had screwed up a lot of things because of it. But I'm going to go ahead and go over this now. So first of all, this is PGM 5. It's from PGM V96 through 172. It's called the Stela of Jehu, the Hieroglyphist in Betts's translation. But interestingly enough, when you look at the actual papyrus that he's getting it from, it never mentions Jehu. The Stela of Jehu is not mentioned anywhere on the papyrus, so we don't really know where that came from. And I don't remember if it's Prizendance that Betts got it from. And I think if I remember right, it was something that Betts got from a Prizendance translation, but I'm not sure for sure now. But I'm pretty sure it turns out that it was not on the original manuscript. So the Jehu does not appear on the papyri. That's coming from a source that is unknown to me at this time. I can't remember where I freaking heard it. And it's one of those websites that, you read it and you think, oh my God, I'm never going to forget that. And then you close the screen and you can never find it again. So I have no idea where I learned that, but I do remember learning it. I'm pretty sure it's true. Yes. Anyway, where were we? Yes. Okay. So it's not a tutelary spirit at all. It's an exorcism. The Stela of Jehu describes the conjuration of the source of everything. The headless entity is amazing. It's a beautiful ritual, and it's a very powerful ritual. And I love it because I'm all into the whole Zeus the head, Zeus the middle, Zeus the all in all thing, right? And this is basically a conjuration of Zeus the head. It's the conjuration of a spirit that has no head. It has no source higher than itself, right? It's headless. Zeus is the only headless entity in my cosmology. He's the one that is the source of all. He's the root of all. He comes out of in the Orphic hymn to Zeus. He comes out as the Saturnine king, who is the root of all, right? He's the source of everything, according to the Dervani manuscript. So this faceless entity, this headless, sourceless entity, is the source of everything. So this is what you're calling on: is the raw essence of godness and the core of the universe, and you're tapping into that through this whole ritual. It's all about getting yourself to identify yourself with that. When you read through the different parts of the thing, it starts about you summon the spirit and you describe the spirit, then you tell the spirit who you are and why you have a right to say anything to it. You're like, I'm Moses, the prophet of Yud Hey Vav Hey. Okay, so Moses, the prophet of Yud Hey Vav Hey. You can see that whoever wrote this ritual, even though he's calling him the headless one, even though he's using all these Greek magical names for him, he's referring to Yud Hey Vav Hey, because Yud Hey Vav Hey, to this sorcerer who wrote this ritual, was another name for the source of everything. Because according to, if you look at the idea of Judaism as understood by the type of sorcerer in the first century who would record their rituals as the Greek magical papyri. That is to say, the sorcerer's view of Judaism is not Judaism. It's not a very accurate understanding of Judaism. It's cultural appropriation. They're using the names of God that they hear the Jews use, and they're using them blasphemously, terribly blasphemously. It's awful what they're doing. If Jehovah really gave a crap about his holy name, everybody would burn for the way they use the name in the first century, as according to the Greek magical papyri. So he's basically lying to God. He's saying, I'm Moses, your prophet. Trust me. And this is what they do throughout the Greek magical papyri. They present themselves as something they're not. So that the gods, who are apparently stupid, are fooled by these awesome, tricky sorcerers into believing that they're actually Moses the prophet, and he's like, trust me, I'm Moses the prophet, the message of Pharaoh Osira-Nofris, right? So who's Osira-Nofris? It's basically, it's Osiris is the best bet, the Pharaoh Osiris. He's basically saying, not only am I Moses, I'm also the Egyptian god Osiris. So he's approaching this entity from using a Jewish name, but he's obviously not talking about Jehovah, right? So it's not the Jewish Jehovah we're talking about. It's a symbol for the source of everything, using whatever names they can think of. He's very much like the creepy dude in The Mummy, who has like all the different pinnacles that he uses to try to get away from the mummy that's risen. And he's like, anyway. That's basically the 1st through 3rd century sorcerer type that used the Greek magical papyri. And today, they're nothing like that today. Not at all. Not at all. None of us who use the Greek magical papyri today are unethical, slimy, skeevy little people who are just looking through the list of spirits trying to influence the world to get greedy results. We're not like that. Maybe we are. Point is, of course, that this entity is about, the ritual itself is about summoning this entity to drive out the spirit that is plaguing your friend. And this is just an exorcism ritual to cure someone of possession. Like if you read through the New Testament, the 1st through the 3rd centuries, demons were just in the streets, y'all. They were just everywhere. They were filling the people. The people were like filled with demons, and they were what were the symptoms of being possessed by a demon? They couldn't speak. They were mute. They would shake. They would tremble. They would twitch. They would rock back and forth nervously. So anyway, people are not that different, and we are not that different. And if you look back in the 1980s and 1990s, there was a movement in the Pentecostal world, and I was sadly caught up in it. I was like 6, 7, I wasn't like enjoying a good at all. But the casting out of demons, the casting out of things like gayness as a demon, and drug abuse as a demon, and all that stuff became very popular in the charismatic group. And it's very much like what apparently the first through third century people were doing to people who suffered what sounds like autism. It's pretty sucky way to live. But 10,000 years, we're still just running on the same brains that we've always had. And I don't think autism is a new experience at all. But anyway, this casting out of demons is something that was a big deal through the third century. So the thing is, it's not a conjuration of a tutelary spirit. I thought it was because Crowley used it for one, but it's not. So I want to talk real quick about the 6 names, and this is where that website comes up that I was showing you just a minute ago. This is the 6 names that I don't know who this guy is. It's the sublunar.space is the name of it. This is from 2017. He wrote this, or they wrote this. I don't even know what the person is. TF wrote it. But they are a wonderful, intelligent person who has really great things to say about things. For many years, I have believed that the 6 names that you put on the forehead of the thing were Aoth, Abraoth, Basim, Isak, Sabaoth, Yao, right? But he points out here that basically what this is a misspelling, and what it's saying is Sabaoth, Sabaoth, in the name of Isaac, Sabaoth, Yao. And that makes more sense, right? Actually, when you say it in the ritual, it does make perfect sense to say it that way. And then he explains that the actual 6 names that you put on there that add up to the right gematria, according to 2 other different sources, as far as I understand it, are these 6, which are pronounced Kabrak, Flisker, Fikro, Finro, Fohobach, or something like that. If you want to know how to read it, the Greek is in the Word document, or I'm sorry, in the PDF that I sent out. This Greek is there. If you paste this into Google Translate, it will tell you what they mean. And it's, funnily enough, Kavrak means badass. So the first word here means badass. You can't make this shit up, This is like one of the funniest parts of uh how cool life is. It's not just me, right? I mean, this is great. This is amazing. I just, anyway. I might be 12, but whatever. I have a good time. All right, so getting back to the thing, it's not a tutelary spirit, it's an exorcism. It's for getting things cured and powerful. It's a great way to get in touch with this Zeus the head, though, the core entity of the universe, the source of all that is, and calling it yourself. The cool thing about this spell is that it transitions a speaker from the priest of Moses, to this stage where it's a narrator or an observer. And in that stage, it stops talking about stops talking about God as an I am, and it starts talking about God as a he is, right? So let's see. I'm still on the spell Nuthus over here. Where are we? Okay, so it's I summon you, this description of the headless, and then it's I am Moses the prophet, and then I call upon you in the secret words to do the exorcism, right? And then it shifts, the script shifts, and all of a sudden the narrator shifts to the second person, and it says he is the blah blah blah, right? And then there's this direct appeal to the God, right? This impassioned request, inflamed prayer that results in the transformation. And then there's a statement of the I am, so I am the headless. And here, I'll just go ahead and, this is a really short thing, so it's really easy to do. So it's like, oh, this is my version of it. Yeah, that's weird. That's the wrong one. Anyway, the spell itself, I'm gonna have to fix this, but the spell itself is pretty straightforward. It's I put it down here in the proper order. It has the preparation and the Kavrak, Flisker, Fikro, Fibro, Fogelbach, right? So that's what you put on your forehead. You can imagine it blazing across your forehead while you're facing the north. And then you say the subject to me, all daemons, so every daemon, whether heavenly or earthly or astral, etc. You say all that, right? So uh at that point you start with the summoning, right? So you start with the description of the headless one that you're summoning, this statement of yourself as Moses, and then you have this calling upon the spirit and the secret names, and then it says uh uh he is the Lord of the gods. He is the Lord of the inhabited world. He is the one whom the winds fear. He is the one who made all things by the command of his voice, right? Lord, King, Master, Helper, save the soul. So he shifts from you are, come forth, oh you great and mighty thing, by these mystical names, to he is, right? So he establishes that the God that he just called is present, and he's telling someone that the entity, he's telling someone about the God that is present now. And then all of a sudden it switches in the script to, I am the headless daemon with sight in my feet. I am the mighty one who possesses the immortal fire. I am the truth who hates the fact that unjust deeds are done in the world. I am the one who makes the lightning flash and the thunder roll, right? Again, he's Zeus, right? I am the one whose sweat falls upon the earth as rain so that it can inseminate it. That's when Zeus's blood fell to the earth and became soldiers, by the way. I am the one whose mouth burns completely. I am the one who begets and destroys. I am the favorite child of Eon. My name is a heart encircled by a serpent. Come forth and follow me. All right. All that stuff is this transformation of the magician, the sorcerer, from just somebody who's just like, I'm stating in the desert, I'm calling on you, to I'm your prophet, to look, you guys, he's here. And then, by the way, it's me, right? So this process transforms a person into something different, and it's important to remember that later. So we're going to move on from here. I did talk about the 6 names. The 6 names, do check out that link. I'm not going to go into all the detail, but it's something that when you look at it, those 6 names do make sense, and it does make a difference when you use those names instead of the oath, Abra oath in your rituals. Definitely recommend it. The next thing I want to talk about is the genius, the Agrippa's threefold keeper of a man. It's from, if you look through Agrippa in book 3, chapter 21, he starts talking about the nature of our genius and how we should listen to its voice, to its invisible voice. There's a part where it talks about the voice of angels. There's this invisible voice that inserts itself into your being in the same way that light inserts itself into your eye, or vision inserts itself into your mind through your eye. He talks about the voice of an angel being able to communicate to you that way. And then he talks about about listening to this invisible voice and how important it is for your good fortune. And he doesn't say that you have a better life. He just says that when you're in communion with this entity, you will be in harmony with your good fortune, right? So you have a better fortune, but it doesn't say that you like have to do it or anything. And then there's a method of obtaining contact with spirits in book 3, chapter 26. And basically what you do is you're nice to the spirit and you call it very much and you get to know it. When you get to this genius spirit, though, he explains in chapter 22 that there's a threefold keeper of a man. The genius is the entity that is like the main primary encapsulating entity of the natal person, and the natal person has 3 parts to it, and the 3 parts are the genius, the profession, and the I can't remember the other one off the top of my head right now, of course. But that third part, anyway, the genius is the one that basically talks for it. And when you get to chapter 26, there's a method for obtaining the contact, and that's where you basically you put the alphabet, the Hebrew alphabet, in the zodiac wheel, starting in the degree of Aries, and you put 1 letter in each degree all the way around. And when you get to the end, when you're done with Zane, once you get to the last letter, you go on to the next letter. You start again with Aleph, and you just repeat it all the way around. Would that be similar to the Shem Hamafresh concepts of the soul, moral, and the physical guardian? I'm not familiar with the Shimham-Fresh concepts of the soul, moral, and physical guardian, but it does sound familiar. It sounds very similar to it. But breaking yourself into breaking that entity into three pieces does make sense. But yeah, that's what it was. The genius does cover the physical part and the protection of the self. But yeah, so anyway, once you've got the alphabet and each of the letters of the zodiac, it ends perfectly at the um, 29th or 30th, depending on whether you start in the first or the 0th degree uh, for your aleph. But depending on whether you consider that first space the 0 degree or the 0 to 1 degree, that's the aleph space, and it ends up with the last alphabet letter of the alphabet right before in the space to the left. So anyway, once you've got your 360 degrees associated with your 360 letters of the alphabet, you find the high legs from your natal chart, and those are your sun, moon, ascendant, part of fortune, and your prenatal syzygy. These placements can be discovered very easily using solar fire, or you can look it up on I think it was astrodienst.com. I'm not sure if it's still around, or astro.com. I haven't looked it up in a long time on the internet, but you can find out the name, the locations of all these things, and depending on where you put your letters, you can figure out the name of your entity by either rounding up or down what your sun is. So if your sun is 4 degrees 25 minutes Sagittarius, your placement there is in between the 4th and 5th degree, right? So in that space, there's going to be a letter from the alphabet, and that letter is the first letter of your genius's name. And then you find where the moon is, and that letter is your moon name, and your ascendant and your part of fortune, your prenatal syzygy. And once you've got all that, you've got the 5 base letters of your genius name. If you add the suffixes EIH or EIL at the end, you have an angel, either ascending or descending the ladder of Jacob. And if you have the name of an angel, you have the method of conjuring. I'm using the Trithemian conjuration method. So when I was teaching the Red Work series of courses, I recommended that people use the Trithemian conjuration method to conjure their genius, and in that experience, get to know their spirit. I never said it was the same thing as the Holy Guardian Angel because I didn't want people to make fun of me for it. I do believe that basically it's the same thing. I have my Holy Guardian Angel's genius name from my natal chart. I don't use it. What's this? Yeah. So okay. That's I don't understand what you just pasted in there, but I think okay. All right. Well, anyway, at the end of the day, you end up getting your basic name, and you can conjure the angel using that. As you conjure the spirit and scry it and ask it things, you get to know it better. I was saying I have my angel name, but I don't call it. I call it the name it revealed to me during Liber Somac. I don't call it the name that I got from my natal chart. I learned its name firsthand from doing Liber Somac, and I've just always stuck with that because I feel like that's what it told me it was, and it seems to work for me. So that's where that comes from. All right, so that's the genius and figuring out the genius name. So the Abramelin this thing, I went through this in detail in preparation for this class, and I thought I knew everything there was to know about the Abramelin before I started making sure I was refreshed with my memory. And what I learned was that I didn't know shit. Everything I know is wrong, and I hadn't looked at it in years, and everything was off at least a little bit. Let's see. Before I get started too much here, because this is actually going to be a long one. Let's see. Did anybody have any questions? Here we go. Okay. Does the nativity angel know the name of the HGA? Yes. So going back to Uri, I do believe that the nativity angel can give you the name of the HGA. The Can you get the name without the birth time? No, you cannot. There is if there's a thing called rectification or recension. It's like you can basically a very well-trained astrologer, like I would go to Christopher Warnock for this. I wouldn't trust anybody else, but basically you tell them, I don't know what my birth time was, but I know the day, and they look up all the times and placements of the day. If you can get a general hour from your mom, that or you can guess what time of day it was from other information from family members or whatever, that can help. But then they will ask you questions based on what your chart would look like based on that day, because like there are certain placements of planets that, within 24 hours the placement of the sun won't make that big of a difference um, to how it's going to manifest in your life, and they can help pinpoint exactly what would have happened to you at certain points in your life based on where your planets would have been if they knew what time that you were born, right? So it's basically, if you own Solar Fire Gold, for example, you can hit play, and it'll show you how the moon and the stars and the planets move throughout a day, and that makes it super easy to do this. But basically, you listen to somebody's life story and you say, oh, okay, when you were young you had this experience and you received this as a result, and this has impacted you this way. That would indicate that you had this planet in this house, and then you could like reverse that a little bit and narrow down the time a little bit, and you do that back and forth from all the major events that correspond to different placements until you have a pretty good idea of what time it was that you were made, or that you made your appearance on Earth. So you can get the name without the birth time. It's just you have to have a really skilled astrologer, and you have to be willing to share very intimate parts of your life with them. And that's not something I would want to do with anybody except for like Chris Warnock, like I said, from Renaissance Astrology. He's really trustworthy. He's a lawyer, or used to be a lawyer. I don't know if he still works as a lawyer, but at one time he was a lawyer, and he's very ethical. It's one of the few people in the occult community that I actually trust with information without worries. Yuri asked, can we use the Nativity Angel instead of the HGA to bind demons like Lucifer, Beelzebub, Astaroth to take their oaths? Just like, that's actually, yes, that's an excellent question. The Nativity Angel is good. It is pure, and it is all about protecting you. Based on what I understand about it, it should be able to do the same things. I wouldn't put myself in that position personally, because I've met Lucifer, Beelzebub, and Astaroth, and I respect that they have their own methods of being approached. I work with them through Skirlin. I enjoy their good graces. I don't make a big fuss out of things with them. I don't like the people that worship them very much. Basically, it was what it boils down to. Like, I've had bad experiences with like a handful of terrible people who were very into that stuff, and it just sort of soured the whole belief system for me. I've had the same thing happen with Christianity and a lot of other beliefs too. It's nothing personal. If you're into that, by all means, I know that it's a rewarding, it's a valid, it's authentic spirituality. It's just I don't like it. So but when I work with them, I do go through, I mean, I still work with them. It's not like I love the spirits. I just don't like their followers very much. So, but when I work with them, I go through Skirlin. I use Jake Stratton-Kent's recommendations on things. And I also use my own, the Trithemian method of conjuration. They work fine with that. So I'm happy with that, but that's based on my comfort levels. I don't recommend it to other people. So no, I wouldn't use the daemon name for that, especially if you just conjured it with the through the Holy Guardian Angel, because those are some really big forces that come with baggage, right? And it's not because they're evil, it's because people think they're evil. And because people think they're evil, they're afraid that something bad's going to happen to them, and it leaves room for bad things to happen, because it's part of what we learn as magicians, is what we say is going to happen ends up happening. That's the power and the glory of what we do as hermeticists, as these people who understand that our symbols and our invisible forces of the winds passing over our vocal cords, moving in time with our will, shapes reality in ways that's awesome. You know, it's anyway. I totally lost thread there. Yes, you can use it to do that, but I wouldn't do that, I guess is what I'm saying. Uh, it's dangerous. I mean, uh, you're that's where I was going with it. As we express things into being with our invisible minds, we have the power to do that, but also if we're not if we haven't dealt with our monsters and our issues, if we have trauma, we can project that onto these spirits, and they are just forces. They will empower what we project onto them. And this is something that people don't understand. But when we say come not in that form, in Obermelon, it talks about how one of the things you tell the spirits before they show up on the third day with the demons and their cohorts of demons is you have to come in this form. I want this spirit to come in that form. I want this spirit to come in that form. This come not in that form bullshit, it's important when you're conjuring these evil demons, because you're projecting onto them the shape and the form and the ability to influence you that you're allowing them, right? So you're constraining them with your imagination, with your projection, with your description, with your studying, and your when you read other people's descriptions and anecdotes about Beelzebub and Lucifer and Ashtaroth, you end up getting from them their experiences, and that programs your expectations, and that in turn changes what your reality can be with these spirits. So this sounds like I'm saying that this is all in your head and you create your experiences with these spirits, and that's not true either. They have their own awareness, and they have their own intentions and their own consciousness and their own missions in existence. They have their own senses. They have their own wills, their own willpowers, and their own interests. They're not aligned with ours except for when they are, right? And they have to do what they have to do, and we have to do what we have to do. And we're all doing it at the same time in the same place. And sometimes we do it all together in beautiful harmony. And sometimes we end up working against each other, but this is all part of it. Right. And you gotta learn to be the maestro that tunes things together and weaves it all together and all that stuff. And that's what the Holy Guardian Angel is there to help do for you, is to weave those threads harmoniously in your favor. But yeah, so the reason when it comes to those three big wigs from the darkest pits of hell that I'm careful is because most of it comes from Christianity, which teaches you that you're a piece of crap and that you deserve to be punished, and that these are the entities that punish you, and you're going to call them into your living room, and you're going to rely on your interpretation of this other aspect of Agrippa that may or may not be the same entity, but Josh said so because he said it is on, and he's on the internet and he knows. So okay, Lucifer, here's Stevie L, and Stevie L's going to protect me. And meanwhile, Stevie L's like, what the fuck? I don't know what I'm doing here. So, you can't really, you got to be aware that we're dealing with major forces that have their own drive and ambition and agendas with things, and that if they've expressed rules for working with them, by all means follow the rules. If there's a system that isn't hard to do, like the Skirlin system, I put together the Skirlin talisman in a weekend, and everything else is something that you can, if you don't have the right equipment, you can substitute with good intent, and it works just freaking fine. And they have the ways to do it, and it's just, why not do it as close to what you're told to do as possible. So that's my understanding about all that stuff. Your mileage may vary. I'm not telling anybody what they can and can't do. I'm more careful with all this stuff because basically because I'm mentally ill. And if I let things get out of control and I'm working with all these powerful spirits, I've seen it empower things that I thought were great at the time, but I was in the middle of a manic episode, and it was just a really bad idea, but it got really big and it got out of hand, and then you know, great, great, all the power of the universe. And where was my HGA? Why wasn't he stopping me from doing this? Well, I mean, because I never asked his opinion about things. I never asked what was going to happen. I never did divinations. You know, it's like these spirits are great helpers and great assistants, but they aren't there to do the work for you, right? You still have to do the work. They're there to help you do your work, right? So anyway, let's turn our attention to Abramelin because this is a long topic. Let me see. Was there any other questions? Can you use a hawk statue, bird skull, stuffed animal instead? Yes, absolutely, Joseph. That's a great call on the hawk. You can use a hawk statue, but also it's an herb. I can't remember off the top of my head for sure which herb it is. But there's an herb that you can substitute. There's a vegetable that is the same thing according to a source in Adam McLean's alchemical library. It's a well-known substitute that they used as a blind, that the priests used as a public blind, and you can substitute. I think it was mullein. I'm not sure for sure, but I'm pretty sure. I want to say it was either mullein or heliotrope or something like that. But you can substitute a vegetable instead of the hawk's head. In the same way that you shake myrtle, you can shake this herb. But I will see if I can look it up and find out. PN, I don't know what, I don't remember who you are in real life, PN. I'm sorry. All I can see is PN. But would that be similar to the Shimham Afresh? Like I said, I'm not really not sure, not familiar with that. Joey, you've pulled out something that just is confusing to me. I think I understand what you're trying to do with it, but I'm having a hard time placing it. Destructive forces aren't evil. We just perceive their effects as unfavorable. Yes, that's true. That's very much exactly it. That's exactly it. If Lucifer is the morning star, how can he be evil? Right. Well, sure. That of course. Venus is also, if I understand Lucifer. Yes. Okay. So if you look at Lucifer, Lucifer is one of the epithets of Hecate also, right? Lucifer is one of the epithets of Hermes. It's one of his epithets as well. So Lucifer is it's a description, it's a descriptor of the gods. It's one of the things that says what they can do. What Lucifer is he's the enlightener. What Hecate does with her torches is she lights up the night and aids Demeter in looking for Persephone, her best friend, her childhood friend who she grew up with. You know, she's out there in the dark with these torches in the dangerous nights, all by herself or with another woman, you know, looking through the dark, right? That's what her Lucifer is, right? That's Hecate Lucifer, the Phosphoros, right? That's Hecate Phosphoros. So but when you get to Hermes Phosphoros, Hermes Lucifer, you know, that's a completely different type of enlightenment, right? It's a different kind of illumination. It shows you different aspects of the connectedness and the flow of things, right? So and Venus is also Lucifer, exactly. So what does Venus luxify? What does Venus bring light to? How does the enlightenment of love and Aphrodite different than the enlightenment of Mercury and different than the enlightenment of Hecate? Right? What is this Lucifer and Lucifer, the emperor of hell? Who is that Lucifer, the emperor of hell? What is his history? Is it something that is similar to these things? Is it the same Lucifer or is it different? You know, you've got to look at the mythos of all this stuff, because your human interaction with this invisible, divine, spiritual realm that comes to us through talismans and through myths and through rituals and through Greek magical papyri and chants and all the different things that we do as magicians, all that stuff has to be it's under your control, and it's going to reflect your will, right? It's you that's making it happening, right? You know, so I mean, you have to make sure that all this stuff makes sense and it is cohesive and it's harmonious. Because if your belief system, and this is stuff I got into in the conjuration class, I think a lot, your conjuration should reflect very much your belief system. It explains why you're there and who you are and what you want to have happen, and it empowers everything that you do as a magician, right? Every part of this needs to be part of your approach. Like Lucifer to you needs to make complete sense. And you need to understand every aspect of how Lucifer is the same. Lucifer, Venus, and Lucifer, Lord of Hell. If you're going to say they're the same thing, they have to express an aspect of things. Like Lucifer is also Christ, the bright morning star, right? That's Jesus Christ was also Lucifer. I know somebody who started a whole church around that idea, and it's doing great. You know, I'm not into that, but it's whatever, you know. that's an aspect of truth, but you have to be willing to face the struggle of balancing that and bringing that into rectification, so that your philosopher's stone that you create out of that is going to actually rectify the world and bring healing to the world, right? Because whatever vibe you bring is going to materialize around you, and that's very a hippie way to put it, but that's what we're doing. We're tuning our vibes with words. We're tuning our vibes with timing, with astrological forces, with archangels, with symbols. We're tuning the vibe so that the rest of the universe sings along with us. We're giving it the rhythm. We're giving it the beat. We're telling it what the melody is, and we're telling it to move its feet, right? That's what it has to do for us. It has to be working for us. And it does it because we know the secret names and we know the secret times to call on them. Anyway, moving on back to Abramelin. Um, Abramelin is sort of like it's just like the first ritual we looked at, the spell to Nuthis, but it's so much more complicated. And you can see how society has been between the 1500 years in between the two spells, has taken the same experience that I was talking about, the historical tutelary spirit conjuration experience, and layered it through with what Abraham of Worms believed were the most important things according to him, and why he was right and everybody else was wrong. And it's totally this egotistical, opinionated, my way is better than everybody else's way, but really it's like it's covering his ass the whole time, talking about Kabbalah and Christianity, and like you can see him dancing with all the political and social forces that were at play in Worms at the time that it was written. But at its core, if you set aside all the commentary on society and all the commentary on other magicians and their practices and how my magic is better than your magic, and my understanding of astrological timing makes so much more sense than your astrological understanding of timing. Oh my gosh. It's once you get rid of the pretentious bullshit that every magician, meme too, and fucking all of my friends brings to the table and puts over their actual wisdom, once you peel it away, you end up with uh, uh, you go to a holy place, you have an ecstatic experience, and then you have this power to control the forces of reality around you. And it's a completely different belief system. It's not Helios and the moon. It's not you still have another boy child there to confirm that an innocent youth is there to confirm that you got the name of your spirit, to help you welcome it. You still uh, you end up afterwards being able to do the same things. You have the same powers, the same abilities to change the world, the same abilities to make money, the same abilities to influence people and get ahead, to make friends and influence people. All the same stuff that you get from the Greek magical papyri and the spell of Nuthis. It's almost word for word to be found in the Abramelin rite, and I've sent you guys links to that stuff so you can see it for yourself. It's 100% like fascinating to get into. I'm not going to get into all of it because you know an Abramelin course in and of itself, I've heard, goes for a lot of money. So anyway, I'm not gonna joke too much about that. So the three-part rite, the three durations of building the temple. So it's a three-part rite, and the first part is this span where you're building this holy space, right? And the first in the French version, Mather's version of the Abramelin, the duration is 6 months. In the Den version, that's based on the German translations of the Abramelin script, it's a year and a half. It's 18 months. It's 3 sets of 6 months each. And it actually makes more sense with the other text in there. But the French version had 3 sets of 2 months each. So it's a third of the length, but it's, skipping quite ahead pretty quickly. But regardless of the timing, the duration, it's still 3 durations of time, right? And in the first duration, in both versions, you say your prayers in the morning. You find a place to say your prayers. and you say your prayers in the morning. You go in the morning, you open the window, you say your prayers, and then you close the window and you leave, right? And that's what you do for 6 months, according to the Den translation, you know? And then for the next in the French version, it's only for 2 months. But you every morning you have to bathe and you wear your clean clothes. You face the window, right? You open the window first, right? You devoutly and with boldness thank God for the gifts. You humbly confess your sins. You ask for your angels so that you don't sin, and then you close the window, right? So you're telling God, you go to the window and you say, "Thank you for everything good you've given me. I'm still a piece of crap, but you don't want me to be a piece of crap, so you better send your angel." And then you close the window. And you do that for 2 months, according to the French version, or 6 months for a year. You do that every morning, right? And the clean clothes, according to Albermelin, you have to wear clean clothes, and that means you wash them once a week. You have two outfits, and you wash one week, and you wash the next week. So you never have clothes that are older than 1 week because you're clean for this. Different standards of cleanliness at the time. The second duration, whether it's 2 months or 6 months, um, you add washing your face and your hands before you do the prayers, and you add evening prayers. So you're doing in the morning and the evening, and you're washing your face and your hands now. So you're getting serious about this, and you extend the duration of your prayers. You're not just praying quickly through your thank you, confess your sins, better send me an angel so I don't sin, and then close the window. It's be prayed for as long as you can, and then you close the window. And you each time you're leaving behind more and more of the worldly world. You're not spending as much time with your fellow humans, and you're spending more and more time praying to God and pursuing holy, 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 holy things. Right. So then after you've been doing this for a year, according to the Den translation, for a year, you've been going to the same room with the same equipment, saying the same prayers in the holiest ways that you can, more fervently and more fervently. After a year of doing that, then you add noon prayers and you wash before them. And everything else is the same for another 6 months, right? And you close the window at the end of it. You open the window, pray, and close the window. Now this lasts from you in both the versions you start on Passover, right? And on Passover you start, and in the French version, by Sukkot you're ready to start the next phase, right? It's 6 months later. But in the German version, you go to the next Passover and then the next Sukkot, you're ready. So you've in the German version, you've got a year and a half that you've been worshiping in this holy space, and you've been worshiping, and not just worshiping, you've been calling on the source of everything. So like Zeus the head, and you've been telling Zeus the head that you're Zeus the middle, and that you're stuck in the middle, and that you're trying to be good, and you're grateful for everything good he's given you so far, but you're still not having everything you want because you keep screwing it up and you really need help, right? You're Zeus the middle. You are also part of the one that has the source of all these holy spirits that can help me out with this stuff. I need you to help me, right? So you've been saying this morning, noon, and night for over a year and a half. This place has heard you. Every spirit in the area has heard you calling on God to do this thing, right? So a year and a half later, or 6 months later, after you've been doing this, right? You go in, and this time in the final phase, you've got everything as usual up to going in, right? And then you take off your shoes. And for the rest of the thing, you go in without your shoes because you're in holy ground now, because you've blessed and consecrated the fuck out of this place. Ah, sorry about that. And now I rebooted everything before I started so that we wouldn't have that happen, and we had it happen anyway. I apologize. Let's see. All right. So anyway, you've finished. You've consecrated this holy ground as like the holiest ground on the planet for you, right? And you're going into uh, this ritual, and you've put on your special clothes, your very special priestly garments, and uh, you've got your holy robe, right? And uh, you say the special prayer, and then afterwards you just put everything back, and then you go through and you do your regular prayers as usual, right? And then, right, that's it, that's like the culmination of this thing, right, after all this time, right? And that's it. It's just you do the same thing, except you've got this one special oration that just basically saying, this is it, God, I've done it all, and I'm ready to go, I'm ready, all right, I'm ready. Right. And then you go in, and then like, and he tells you, by the way, the reason I'm just making up shit here and not telling the full thing is he gives you a full version of it in the Abramelin thing, his version of it, but he tells you can make up your own. And throughout the whole thing, he advises that you use your own language for this, because this spirit is a reflection of your own will in so many ways. And you use your own language when you're referring to this thing, because you are telling it how to appear. You're telling it what it is going to do and how it's going to influence you and impact you throughout the rest of your life, right? Um, so so after that first day, after that long time, you go in, and this is then you start the 3 days with the angel, right? So that's this first the three durations of building the temple. That's just the first part of the rite. The first year and a half, that's the first part. The second part of the rite is the 3 days with the angel, and the third part of the rite is the 3 days with the demons. Okay, so the second part of the rite starts on the day after you've gone in and dressed up in your fancy robes, and you're all like sort of like but then you did the same thing as always, and then you shut the window, right? So this time is angel day one. You go in, you do not wash, you do not wear your fancy robes, you wear robes of mourning, you put ashes from your fire from yesterday on your forehead, and you smell like crap. You take your shoes off, you go in, you've got your child seer with you, and you pray fervently and fervently and fervently to the Lord, and you just beg him to send his angel, and sooner or later the angel appears, right? And the angel gives you his name, and you have this smell fills the temple, and you have this feeling like you've never felt, and you have this very ecstatic experience that's beyond words, and it changes everything in that moment, and you never experience the same world ever again. It's like LSD, only it's spiritual, and it's permanent, and it's a permanent shift. And from then on, you get to see the world in a different way, because you have a crystalline understanding of a fundamental aspect of reality. It's like understanding that you're always going to have the same level of gravity pulling you down when you're on the surface of the earth, pretty much. Knowing that is something you can rely on, and understanding how to use that to your advantage. You know, balance. It's like having balance, and you get it. And when you have it, you know that you never had it before. It's like getting glasses when you need glasses and you don't have glasses, and you get glasses for the first time, and all of a sudden you realize, I have been a threat to everybody on the road for a very long time, right? And why are we such a threat? Because we can't see jack, and that's what you see after you get this holy guardian angel experience. And that's that first day when the angel shows up, and it's incredible. And for me, I was doing holy, it was Liber Somac. It was not even the same. um it was not even the same entity. So uh oh, good. I'm glad that you guys are still here, by the way. 16 people, that's great. Awesome. Okay. I lost the meeting chat, by the way. If anybody had questions that I'd missed, please feel free to type those in. So anyway, after you get the name of the angel, right? So you have this vision of the angel, it fills the room. The child feels it too. And that's what the child's there to do, is to experience this. And again, the child is going to be just as programmed by you and this your smelly butt with your mournful things, praying fervently on the floor, and then all of a sudden having an ecstatic experience. The child's going to look up and probably feel that something. And also, oh, you know what? Where was it? I forgot something important. I'm sorry. I apologize. I missed something important. You put on the fancy outfit, you say the special orison, and then you anoint the altar with the statement. Oh my gosh, you guys, I missed it. You anoint the altar with, in whatever place it may be, wherein commemoration of my name shall be made. I will come unto you and I will always bless you. I will bless you. You put that on all four sides of this altar. So in this temple space, let's go back for a minute, you guys. All right. So go back to this temple space. You've got this altar in the middle of it. And remember now, for a year and a half, you've been going into this thing, or at least 6 months, every day. All the spirits in the area have heard you say, challenge God. Look, I'm so thankful for everything you've given me. You are an awesome God. I am grateful to you. And I still screw up. I am the failure here. It's all my fault, but you can help me by giving me this spirit. I've been honoring you every day and for every day for a year and a half, you honor God and you do it devotionally and like fully with all your heart. You commemorate God's name for a year and a half in this holy, holy place. It's full of the power that you've focused on it. And then you write on the side of it, in whatever place it may be, where in commemoration my name shall be made, I will come unto you and I will bless you. Because that's what God said, right? That's what he said. And you're putting his words up on the altar on all four sides so that every spirit in the area that for the last year and a freaking half has watched you worship this God, you're putting him on call and you're saying, prove to these spirits that you're going to keep your word. Show me the power of God, of a true and honest God that is there for you. Show me that power, God. Where are you? And then you put everything back and you just do your regular prayers and you close the window, right? And then you go in the next day. And that's why you put on the clothes of mourning, because, all right, so you wear your clothes of mourning to show everybody that you're a piece of crap, right? Like that's the old Jewish way of, in the Old Testament, of saying, I have done wrong and I'm punishing myself publicly. I'm not going to tell you why. It's none of your business. This is between me and God, but this is so bad that I have to humiliate myself in public, right? And that's what you do when you go into this room, because you're shielding yourself from the wrath of God. When you do that, you're saying, look, I know I'm a piece of crap. I'm working on it. Please help me out here, right? So when you put on that cloth of mourning and you're smelly, you're not even bothering to clean yourself. You're saying, this is more important even than my own hygiene, right? So that's why it's important to do. God, I can't believe I almost missed all that. That's the whole layer of this thing that I thought was incredibly important to grab. But anyway, so you've got the child's seer on the second. After that, when you leave, when you have the name of the angel, you have this whole experience that changes everything in your life. And then the second day you come in and you pray a couple hours and then you leave and you go back at noon, and then the glory and the splendor remain. And so on the second day, the angel starts to speak to you, right? So the first day you get the name, the second, and you ask it to teach you more about magic. The second day it teaches you more about magic, and you tell it, or it tells you like the secret names or something like that the second day. And then the third day it teaches you how to actually conjure the spirits, right? So yeah, I think that's what it is. On the second day it teaches you about the spirits that you're going to be working with, the demons, and its own holiness and everything. And then on the third day it tells you everything you need to know to conjure these spirits, and it coaches you and it guides you and it trains you in the confidence that you need to have when you're dealing with these entities, so that you don't screw things up with your fears that I was talking about earlier. So when I was giving you those answers earlier about the natal spirit and all that stuff with the using your natal spirit name with Beelzebub, Astaroth, and Leviathan, I mean, yeah, Right. In theory, yes, absolutely. And speaking as somebody who believes that Zeus the head, Zeus the middle, Zeus the all in all, I think Lucifer and Beelzebub and Ashtaroth and the holy guardian angels are all part of Zeus the middle. It's just Zeus the middle and different vibes. And some parts of it get along and some parts don't, whatever. You know, I think that because it's all part of Zeus, we can harmonize and find a way to get along. And yes, absolutely, I feel that I could use, and I'm confident I could use my natal name for these entities, and they would know what I meant, and they would respect what I meant without necessarily having to be right for them. But I respect them enough to actually do it the right way. Uh, and it's just being respectful to your fellow incarnates, right? I mean, it's just being a decent entity. But you don't have to be a decent entity if all you know is English and they can figure out what you mean by English. They'll definitely speak to you in English. They don't give a crap. And that's just an example. They actually love it when you speak in your native tongue. Um, so day 3, you conjure this angel, and it tells you all about the ins and outs of why you need to be confident when you're talking to these spirits, right? And about why you don't have to worry about it when they tell you no. Okay. That's something that's key about working with these Aubermelon spirits. They're going to tell you no. They're hostile in the elements. They're the evil spirits of Agrippa's 4 table of the chapter 7, book 2, I think. Scale of the number 4. The evil spirits that are evil in the offensive in the elements. That's what the Aubermelon demons are kind of like, right? They're anti-humans. It's just I don't know why people want to work with spirits like that, but that's just how people are. We're kind of crazy that way. We like to be edgy. I'm not better than that. It doesn't make any sense when you think about it, though. It's kind of funny. But yeah, we like dark things. So anyway, these Aubermelon spirits are dark, right? And they're edgy, and the whole Aubermelon rite is a demon magic rite. I think that's hilarious. Like it's something that comes across as like we're obtaining this holy, beautiful experience, and no, actually, you're just bullying these pathetic little miscreants who exist to torment humankind. Okay, that's real spiritual. But when you get to know what they really are, they aren't that bad. They're just part of life. They're like the monsters. They're the diamonds of the negativity. I'm really big on how Gaia creates monsters, and there's nothing you can do about it. There's just negative crap that comes along in life, and these entities, these Aubermelon entities, are just the negative crap that sucks to deal with in life, right? And it's the holy guardian angel that drives them away. And having this unity with it is how you do it. And you have to accept that they're going to oppose you from day one, and that they don't want to be around you. But it's only because you've gone through and you've gotten this different way of looking at things, this clarity that you receive when you obtain the knowledge and conversation with your holy guardian angel, this clarity, this lens replacement change to things lets you see and understand that when they're resisting you, that you just need to explain to them again who they are, and your words transform them because of the holiness of the angel, and they become not recalcitrant, but they become at least harmonious with your intent, if nothing else, to make the angel go away so they can feel less pain. So anyway, Angel Day 3, you go in and he talks to you about all that stuff that I just sort of tried to go over there. And then you learn all the different ins and outs about magic. And basically what this is in real life, you start to learn this learning process of absorbing how things just sort of work, man, and how it like all flows together, man. And it's a very hippy dippy kind of situation, and it's very interesting, but you learn tables of things. If you've ever been through any kind of lodge initiation, like I joined the AA for a while, and in each degree, they give you a list of books and things you have to memorize, and you have to report to someone and prove that you memorized it by saying it out loud. It's ridiculously simple, but also ridiculously hard. and like whole books of weird crap. And I'm gonna definitely make sure nobody has to do that in my initiatory cult. I tell you what. But the whole uh the whole thing is it's all about, I don't know, it's all about the intent. uh anyway, moving on. um on day three, when you leave, and day 1 through 3, all of a sudden you're leaving the window open, because you're showing the rest of the universe that the angel has arrived, and you're showing that the Lord has kept his promise. So these 3 nights, or 3 days, you leave the window open after you've made contact with the angel. um, on the first day that you conjure the demons, you enter the oratory and you wear your holy robes again that you wore a couple days before, and you wear the girdle and the crown and a rod, and you have your almond rod on the altar, and you speak from the heart. And one of the things he tells you is, throughout all of this, is you speak from the heart passionately, like using your own words in your mother tongue. You say it in your own way, why these spirits need to be with you. And if they resist, you don't get angry or scared. You be assured in your faith and show them that you have given it all and up, and that they're and are stubbornly trusting them to yield, right? So you're not afraid. You know that they have to obey you because of this understanding that you've received from your knowledge and conversation with the holy guardian angel. You see that they will obey you eventually, and that all the resistance is just them not yielding, and you have to just wait for it, and you surrender completely to that greater good, and you confidently tell them, no, you have to obey, no, you have to obey. And you just do this until they obey, and they do, right? And he says you should perform the conjuration in your mother tongue, or in languages you well understand, and conjure the spirits by the authority of and their obedience to the holy patriarchs, right? So you tell them why they have to obey you, rehearsing unto them the examples of their ruin and fall, of the sentence which God hath pronounced against them, of their obligations unto servitude, right? You just tell them who they are and why they have to obey you, right? And you just tell them who they are and why they have to obey you. And they'll be like, no, that's not me. And you're like, no, this is who you are. And think about it this way, right? You've done all this work to gather up all the energies of the land. Now you're shaping it with your words by telling it what it is. And it might be trying to tell you, no, wait, I want to manifest this way. But you're an asshole, and you're going to tell it, no, you're actually a mean spirit. You have to be like this. And it basically, and you describe it until it is what it is, and it responds, okay, yes, I am. And once it does that, you've obtained Lucifer, Ashtaroth, and uh Beelzebub, right? You've got the 3 of them working together. You make them swear on your wand, the 4 kings, I'm sorry, Orion's, Payman, and Amen, whatever. Anyway, you have them swear on the wand, and you put it outside on the balcony. You don't actually go out yourself because it's dangerous. And you make them swear on the wand that they'll obey and bring you the 8 sub princes the next day. And the next day, you do the same thing with the 8 sub princes, and you tell them how they have to manifest and everything. And then at that point, you have a list of and the holy guardian angels help you prepare for this. You have a list of everything that you're ever going to want a spirit to do for you, or everything you can think of that you want these evil spirits to do for you. You want money, you want the prettiest girl, you want your wife to live past 30, you want her to be able to get an abortion if she needs to, so that she doesn't die in childbirth. All these random things that are very selfish. You want these demons to provide for you, right? So you make this laundry list of everything that you want these spirits to do, and you tell the 8 sub princes how they have to appear, how these spirits have to appear. And also at the same time, you receive the 4 personal familiars from Orion's, Payman, Mammon, and Arion, I think it was, or Atrion, or Aetion, or something like that, Eraton. And you get a personal familiar for each of those that will do as much as they can. And if they can't accomplish a task for you, they'll get their boss on up the food chain. So yeah. So anyway, the 4 superiors, it tells you what you're supposed to demand from each of them. And when you demand from them, this is something else that tells you how you're telling them what they are. You explain that you're not here as some malign curiosity, but you're actually tending to the honor and glory of God. And what that means is you're explaining to them that what we're doing here is we're fulfilling the true will of God. We're actually accomplishing God's providence by you serving me, which is actually what you do, by the way, because that's what I said earlier. And that's just how it is, right? And you keep telling them what to do and what they have to do and that why they have to do it. And you make your demands and you explain to them who they are and why they're going to do what they have to do, and that they will consent to obey, and that the four sovereign princes will name unto you the eight sub-princes whom they will send in their place to take the oath, as I have already said, to appear at once on the following morning when commanded by you, and that they will duly send the eight sub-princes. And they do. And they do. And you have the experience of this happening as if it were very true, because it, for all intents and purposes, is true, right? And your child seer is seeing all this stuff, and you're seeing shapes on this silver. You have a silver table that you put on the altar that the angel has signed. You get the spirits to put their hand on the altar, on the almond wand, and take an oath out through the window to you. You have these entities that appear to you based on these tables of numbers and things, and that do all these interesting things for you. And this happens on each of the demon days. There's three demon days. So like I said, there's three phases. There's the preparing the area, where you charge the area with all this expectation of the visitation of the angel, that only the visitation of the angel can fulfill the obligation that you've established on that last day of the rite. When you establish an obligation that the universe owes you a freaking favor here in the form of an HGA, and then you leave, and then all the rest of the universe is like, oh yeah, well, better freaking, yeah, here's your HGA, right? And then you got 3 days of angel teaching you all this angelic shit that you're going to need to know when you conjure the demons. And then you conjure the demons, you got 3 days of telling them everything that they are. And then you've got 4 spirits that you end up with, and they actually serve you for the rest of your life in 6-hour shifts, right? They're basically, you got a representative of all 4 kings around you all times, walking in circles, just making sure that you're standing at the door, checking people's IDs, right? Just covering your butt a little bit, looking out for you, a little bit of muscle, a little bit, and they don't like you, but they serve you. They do that for the rest of your life, right? So, and you tell them how to appear. You make sure that they know how to appear or not appear, right? And if you look at medieval paintings, there's paintings of people's ghouls and their spirit familiars that are with them. And it used to be known that people had these things, right? So anyway, you can tell them how to appear. Your third demon day, you get the 4 princes, the 8 sub-princes, and all their hosts. So all the spirits that you've given them the laundry list on day 2 for, they all appear. You make them all swear to obey what's written on the symbols, and you make them swear things like you have to do this if I even touch it. So you're covering yourself to a point to where you don't even have to say the words anymore. All you have to do is, if I touch this symbol, you'll know that I mean you have to do this thing. You're basically programming hotkeys into the universe, so that when you're programming keyboard shortcuts onto your magical symbols, so that when I touch this, it means you, Alexa, go out and put you, AI assistant, go out and do these things for me in this set of order of tasks, right? So basically, this is a mystical artificial intelligence running your house and home and all the events in your life, and making sure that files are moved automatically when they arrive in your email to the appropriate places where the approval process gets kicked off, and it sends out the appropriate notifications to the people down the way, so that everything continues to function in ways that brings you happiness, pleasure, profit, joy, positive experiences that make your life better, that empower you to pursue happiness, pleasure, joy, excitement, creativity, all those wonderful things that we're here to do. All right, moving on. Okay, so does anybody have any questions about that? That was quite a lot, and I did get interrupted a couple times there with some stuff. If you do have any questions, do feel free to type them in. I can see chats. If you're typing things into the chat, I'm not seeing it. I am seeing, it says, see this. There, I just posted something. I don't know if anybody can see it. All right. Yes. All right. Thank you, PN. Awesome. So if anybody has any questions, do feel free to type them in. But that's my understanding of Abramelin. It's a long ritual, and when you get out of it, you end up with a spirit, and you have a name, and you have these demon familiars that will do whatever you want for the rest of your life. And the ways that you're supposed to use it are very well defined in there. I did want to actually, before I go on, let's see, go back. All right. To here. Okay, so this is the Book of Abramelin, the Den translation. This I sent the link out to this scanned version of the text. It's available at archive.org. It's an excellent scanning of the document, and it has all the commentary in it that you could possibly hope for. It's brilliant. But I wanted to show that like the French version has 3 chapters. The German version had 4 chapters. Right. So here it has more details about the story around where he traveled and all the things that he went about. But then it gets to book 2, and it has very specific solutions for very specific problems. And this is when I say things like, you'll see that it reads like a receipt book from a hoodoo practitioner. It really does. All this stuff these are like the titles that you would find in a receipt book for a hoodoo practitioner. Here's one section of their filing cabinet for serious diseases. Here's a list of what you do. If you go to page 45, let's see, that's 17. 47, 46, 45. For serious diseases. Here, against a plague, here's what you do. Oh, and it reads just like a freaking it reads just like things like Powwow and the Long Lost Friend. If you've read that, the Dutch magic from the 1700s, it reads very similar to that. And it's very much like a Protestant magical book. Anyway, there's I don't think it is a Protestant magical book, by the way. I think it's a funny joke to make, but it doesn't mean it's true. All right. So anyway, there's a specific prayer that you say from 2 Samuel 24:10 to help with things to be healed. And this is something that you're empowered to do after you've made your knowledge and conversation with your holy guardian angel. There's cure for cancer in there. How cool is that? Reduce all kinds of diseases. And all these things are just like little superstitious ways to draw things to your assistance. And it's ways of shaping the little things of your reality in harmony with your will to kick off a series of invisible events in the invisible world that bring things together in your favor that looks miraculous, right? These are just tips and tricks to manipulate the forces of nature around you using the lore that makes sense, right? So besmoke the plate and repeat 7 times the prayer, stand up, Adonai, in your rage, and raise yourself in anger upon my enemies, right? You just have to say that 7 times, right? To make your enemies unlucky. So write on an iron plate with the lead the words, bad luck will fall on your head and spite cover your head. And then smoke the plate and repeat 7 times. Stand up, Adonai, in your rage, and raise yourself in anger upon my enemies. What does that actually mean? Adonai is Lord, right? You're calling out to some invisible spirit who happens to be in the area around you. All this stuff is terrestrial magic. All this stuff is about the genius loci, the spirits that surround us day in and day out. Hellenistic Greek taught us that Greece believed very much that everything was alive. Everything had a satyr, a nymph, an intelligence, and awareness. It's like Shintoism. It's like the yokai, the spirits of I can't lift up some of the things on my desk right now that are aware and intelligent and unto themselves, that have an experience. The talismans we create, they look like a disc with a shape on it, but they're an awareness, they're an intelligence, that's their body that a spirit is working through, right? So all these spirits are listening to us all day long. And when we say the word Adonai, rise up in your rage and raise yourself in anger upon my enemies, right? Adonai is what? It's the Lord, you big spirit over there, you giant chief spirit who can hear my voice. Who's going to answer that? The chief freaking spirit. That's who's going to answer it, It's who's going to come. Lord's going to come. Who's the Lord? Adonai is the Lord. Who? Adonai. Who answers to that? Whoever's got the courage, the power, the strength to meet the expectations when you say, Adonai, come forth. The spirit that's closest, that matches, that can do what you mean, is going to come forth and say, I am Adonai. I am here for you to Adonai for you right now. And that's the power that you have as a magician, is to shape the spiritual world around you so that the spirit you need is at hand and ready to answer you. So I don't know if that spirit is already there, if it's the genius loci, like I just said, or if it's like some energy force that programs according to your voice, or if it's actually these spirits of the numbers of the tables are reflecting some mathematical principle of existence that is part of the natural forces of reality that has an intelligence that you can interact with magical forces from the 16th century. It's ridiculous when you think about it, but it's effective. It works, you know. Anyway, this is the second book. The second book is all about normal stuff for what your average magician wants. It's like how to change the world, and this is all like day-to-day things that you need help with, right? And then book 3 is all about magic and how our magic is better than everybody else's magic, right? So that's the Den translation, and that's it's worth looking into. Do take a look at that if you get an opportunity to. So now, all right, moving on. Liber Samekh. So Liber Samekh is Crowley's. This is why I included the Stella of Jehu earlier. Crowley wrote Liber Samekh in 1904. It was the first time it was published, I believe. Let me rephrase that. In 1904, Liber Samekh was published in Goetia. So I know for sure it was published in 1904. And this was after he and Mathers, Goetia was published after he and Mathers had a fight. Mathers was hired to translate Goetia by Crowley when he still had money. And Mathers like dragged his feet and screwed Crowley over to the point where they got into a magical war with one another. So Crowley and Mathers were fighting by the time he published Goetia. He published a very famous curse of Mathers in the front cover when he published it. But he also published an early form of the Abramelin Rite. And this was in 1904. And no, not the Abramelin Rite, Liber Samekh. This was in 1904. Now, if you reverse time to back before they were fighting and before they were working on the translation of Goetia, and they rewind and rewind to back when they were friendly people. There was a day that when they'd first met, that Crowley saw the sacred magic of Abramelin on Mathers's shelf and commented on it, and they had a conversation about it. And eventually Crowley decided he was going to do the Abramelin Rite, and he bought Boleskine to perform the Abramelin Rite. And he does the Abramelin Rite. He gets started on it, and in the middle of it, his good friend at the time, MacGregor Mathers, sends him a message that says, "Hey, I need your help." Right. And there's only like a very few reasons that are acceptable for the Lord to allow you to quit doing the Abramelin Rite. And Crowley says that taking care of his friend was a valid reason to do that. So Crowley stops doing the Abramelin Rite to help out MacGregor Mathers. And what MacGregor Mathers has a problem with is that the London Lodge has basically told him to go screw himself because he's been in Paris cavorting with his wife using the money of the London Lodge or something like that. Something terrible was going on with the London Lodge. And so Crowley said, "I will help you, oh my good friend." And he went down and started a big fight. And there was a big famous fight that they had there. And he ended up getting his butt thrown down the stairs by Yeats, of all people. And so Yeats yeeted Crowley down the stairs and in a very famous fight scene. So Crowley quit doing the Abramelin so that Yeats could kick his ass. The biggest poet fight of 1904. Sorry, 1900. So that was in 1900 when he did that. So
fast forward to 1904. At this point, Crowley and Mathers are no longer friends. The man that he had quit doing the Albemarle and Wright for was now an asshole. But meanwhile, Crowley has rewritten uh uh he's written the first version of Liber Samekh, which includes the headless right. So he must have had access to the headless, and the headless, he had to have access to Dance's translation of it, because the translation he uses is the same translation that we use in Betts, right? And Betts used Dance's. So it's like Crowley is still using the same sources that we use today when we do our Greek magical papyri work. So it's like we're not that far removed from him. And with our access to the internet, we know so much more than he did about all that stuff. So anyway, we have much better resources today than he did. But anyway, he rewrote the Stele of Jehu, which he must have seen before 1904. I said in 1904 in this slide, but that's wrong. But he rewrote this conjuration of the supreme source of all things. He recognized what it was. He saw that it was what I call Zeus the head, the eternal source of everything, the lightning god source of all that is. He saw that that's what you're calling on in this ritual. And he rewrote it a little bit so that it reflected more of his understanding of things. But he kept the parts in order that were important, all the barbarous names. Uh, he knew it was supposed to result in a transformation. He saw that it transformed the person saying it from a priest to a god. He knew that transformation was what he understood the Abramelin right to do, right? So if you go back to where they're talking about what you have to do to talk to the spirits, the confidence that you have to have, because you have to understand the role of good and evil in the world, and that these spirits that are evil, we're telling them what to be. You're telling them who they are and how they have to obey you. You're explaining how things have to be. Crowley understood just by looking at that's what that transformation of the magician is supposed to do, is supposed to result in. Because if you become this God source of everything, this deistic force of everything, then in that point, you're able to tell the unruly spirits of the world what they have to do, who they are, and how they have to behave. You speak into them who they are. You tell them what their name is. You tell them what their job is, and you tell them when they have to show up to do your bidding on the face of the earth. Right? Very egotistical, but that's exactly what it is, though. You put yourself into this conjuration where you become the headless. It transforms you into this god according to the spell, right? And in that point, he's like, at that point, you can tell all these unruly spirits what to do. So I'll put it right here in front of the Goetia, right? So you do this spell before you do the Goetia, you'll be fine, right? Because you're the head of everything at that point, right? So he combines the god of the ideas of the thwarting angel, like in the Testament of Solomon. You conjure Uriel to control Belial, if I remember right. You're controlling the devils through the power of the angels. That's a very traditional way to do Solomonic magic. And Crowley takes that idea of the thwarting angel, the Abramelin rite, where the angel is so pure that the devils have to obey him. And at the end of the Abramelin rite, you just let them go because they're just happy to flee the presence of this holy guardian angel and its imprint that it's left on you. So he's combined that thwarting angel with the tech of the holy guardian angel, which is this transformational experience that he thinks he sees in there, that alchemical transformation of the soul by ritually attaining godhood. Right. That's what Samekh is supposed to do. And it includes the elements to give you the power over the terrestrial realm. I want to point out that this is all done in the astral body. This is done in the body of light, which means it takes place in the astral realm, which, if you've taken the courses on the planets, that's the realm of the moon, brothers and sisters. That's the sphere of the moon, right? So from the moon, you are making your play for this solar spirit. You're calling down this Helios spirit that you're gonna use to empower yourself with that Helios life and that Helios light and that Helios illumination, right? That lets you see and understand the true truth of the world, right? That also gives you the holiness that transforms yourself, the power to transform yourself into the being that can direct the forces of both good and evil to manifest the experiences in harmony with your desires and the planet, and not just for your own selfish ambitions, but because that's the way, that's the way, that's how it's supposed to be for the good of all, right? Hopefully. I mean, the problem is that the freaking universe does whatever whoever tells it to do. It goes along with just about anybody. It doesn't really have a moral conscience of its own. I think we're trying to teach the universe right from wrong, but in reality, it's us. Everything we do is either right or wrong, and that's the world that we live in, is what's created by our rightness or our wrongness. If you choose to do something selfish and evil, we have a selfish and evil world. Thanks. It's your fault. If you choose to do something good, you're doing something good. Thanks. You're actually helping. That's it. It's that stupid simple. I'm sorry. It really is. I get frustrated that I also make it hard. I'm not any better than anybody else at any of this. I choose to do evil sometimes just because it's easier, or some part of me is going to get off on it, some twisted part. I'm not perfect. Anyway, so this ritual includes all the elements you need to give you the power over the materialization of the terrestrial realm, and all the spirits in it, and the scourges of God, and every demon and every evil thing, from however you want to see it. You're supposed to have it memorized. I want to talk about the half slit eye technique. This is how I did it. In the text, I actually have pasted in the full text of the Samekh, right? It has what you have to read if you just print it out and close your eyes halfway, and every night before you go to bed, this is a cheating ass way to do it. You visualize yourself the way it describes it. If you read the whole Liber Samekh, I sent the link to that too. If you read Crowley's commentary on it, if you do the visualization that comes with it, you're just empowering yourself to become the source of everything, right? And it's getting in touch with that aspect of yourself that really is connected to the source of everything. And all this ritual does is open up that influence in your life, right? And or that it's almost like a way of disassociating with the present, and all the negative stuff that we have to experience in the daily, and being able to focus on how, even though there's bad stuff going on right now, there's also good going on. And overall, the better we are, the better we make it, right? And it purifies you, and it cleanses you from reactionary thinking, and that impulsive, I have to fix everything right now. You don't have to fix it all right now. If you're working to make things better, it's going to take time. And that's part of being Zeus all in all, is that it's a sea change, and you're just part of the equation, right? And you got to make as big of an impact as you can, and this is how this is all working. But plugging into that consciousness, the way we do it is through these invocations of this all thing, this awareness of this eternal source. And we put ourselves in that trance state by just, you can just sit there on your couch and read through the script with your eyes half closed. Light a stick of incense. Nag Champa works, or frankincense is great. And you just read through the script halfway through. You can light a candle in front of yourself and let your consciousness sink into the flame. And when you feel yourself sunk into the flame, you can just relax, and then you can just halfway open your eyes and read the script. And you do that every night. It takes 10 minutes. It's easy. It's the easiest way to get enlightened. It's a great way to have illumination. I recommend it to everybody. It's fun, and it's simple, and it combines all those different things. And it's if you get rid of Crowley's crap, and you can just use the Auburn, you can just use, like, I have a version of it that's just the Stella of Jehu, and all it is asking for the Holy Guardian Angel. That's a nice way to do it. But you can make it your own, and have it just be, I'm the holiest of everybody, and just get rid of the parts of the Stella of Jehu where it's talking about getting rid of spirits out of your friend, and tell the universe what you want it to do. It is an amazingly great ritual. The Stella of Jehu is awesome for, like, empowering yourself to change the world however you want to do it. But getting yourself a Holy Guardian Angel with this half slit eye technique is super easy too. Highly recommend it if you're into that kind of thing. I also included a link to my own approach to this. This is from the White Work series of courses from way back in the day. The idea of it was, again, trying to capture a spirit of the sun from the realm of the moon. It consists of opening a gate to the sphere of the moon using the seven spheres method of conjuring Gabriel and then reading the Orphic hymn to the moon, and then just sort of like from there conjuring your genius spirit, your natal spirit, uh and until you can experience it, and you just do that over and over again until you have that experience, and it's relatively easy, and there's prayers that go along with it. It's I probably wouldn't do it exactly the same way today, but if you're looking at ways to put together your own conjuration of tutelary spirit that gives you access to your divine rights and your power, I think that this is a very fun way to tap into some of the powers of the whole headless right itself as well. So do take a look at that. It's worth reading through. Jen asks, how long does Liber Somic take to contact the HGA? Okay, so you got to remember that for Abramelin, it was 18 months, and that was it's 11 months. Just skip all the crap, but it's 11 months to finish with Somic, according to Crowley. In real life, it doesn't take that long. It took me about 2 weeks, 11 days sitting on the couch every night reading through it with this half-eyed technique. But I had also been I was just coming out of a very strong Christian binge where I was living a charismatic what not Wesleyan, tulip Calvinist. I was a tulip Calvinist charismatic. That's the kind of intensity I can bring to a situation. I can go all the way to charismatic Pentecostal tulip Calvinist. But anyway, it's coming out of that. I had some very personal experiences that were very ecstatic based on my devotional, very ecstatic programming. Like every morning, I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning and prayed to God exactly the way the Abramelin Rite describes praying out for your local area, for your Abramelin area thing, right? So I had basically done the same thing in the living room, and then instead of that, I started doing Somic in the same area, and because I was rebelling against Christianity and all that stuff, and I had this amazing experience of my holy guardian angel, and it was awesome, and it took me about 11 days. So I thought that was cool too. So it doesn't take 11 months. It takes as long as it takes. I know people that have been doing it every day for years and have had zero effect, and it's 100% because they get exactly what they bring to it, and it's boring, and who would want that? Can you please send us a spread Excel sheet to find out the nativity angel's name? Yes, I can do that. I will put a link to it on my website. But for the one that I have, you round up, by the way. I can't provide you all with your syzygies. I do have a program for that, but it's honestly, it's a pain in the ass. And if you want it, you can pay me to do it, and I will consider it, but I don't want to do it for people. It's incredibly obnoxious. But yeah, I'll put a link to the spreadsheet up, but you do have to round up. So like if you look at your natal chart and it says your sun is 49 degrees 6 minutes, you're in the 50th degree. So for your data point that you enter into the spreadsheet, I'll send you a link to, round up from whatever degree your chart says it's in. So whatever it is, add one. Okay, because it's just how the letters are for me. If you ever use Frater Acker's version of it, he has a link to a spreadsheet that he's put out there. If you Google, I'm sure it's out on his site. I don't remember what his site is, otherwise I'd just tell you what it is. But Frater Acker's version, he started his spreadsheet off in a different cell. So like his Aleph is in the 0 cell, or mine is in the 0 cell and his is in the 1 cell, right? So because of that, his letters are off. So if you're using his and you're in 49 6 seconds, you'd round down so that you're in the 49th to get the right letter. And you end up with the same letter as you do from mine. It's just that because mine starts in a different place, it's off by one letter. And they're both technically accurate according to the text, because the text doesn't say if whether you start in 0 or 1. It just says in the first degree of Aries, right? And is that the between 0 and 1? Is that the first degree of Aries? Yeah, in my opinion. Or is it after between 1 and the next one, right? So that's where Frater Acker and I have the stupidest of dumbest minor things where we have a minor disagreement on things. But I don't think we've ever actually talked about it. But in real life, it doesn't really matter as long as you remember we round up if you use the spreadsheet that I give you from whatever the one that you're in is. So that's basically it. So what does it all mean, right? In all of these rites, there's very similar things that happen, and not necessarily in the Stella of Ju. That's a totally different kind of rite. You can try to make it into something it's not, and you can have really incredible results. But it's more, I think, because you are tapping into the power of what you can do when you really trust yourself, Dumbo, with that magic feather. It's one of the magicest of magic feathers ever. It's incredibly useful, but I don't think that it's end all be all of all great things. There's limits to what it can do, and most of those limits have a lot to do with the limits of what pure faith and eager ambition can bring you in life. You know, it has a lot of potential, but until you are willing to marry it to hard work and honest sweat and tears and blood and years of actual building things a little bit at a time, within the chain of manifestation, you know, moon rules things come into being slowly, not as quickly as you want. But anyway, I'm going to complain a little bit. But anyway, with all these things, there are things that are very much in common from one to the other, and from across time. It's a process of creating a holy space where you commune loudly, regularly with the source of everything, in harmony with the local spirits. And then at the end of it, you for a long time you have this ecstatic experience where you have a mystical transformative understanding of this entity that changes the way you see everything forever, right? And you have to be careful because you can turn into a complete jackass at that point. A lot of people we know do. But after that, you have this intelligent influx of authority and wisdom that manages your magical affairs for you and supports you mightily, a badass intern. So not only do you have like this helper, but you have somebody who is like really good at what they do. So anyway, that's all I've got for tonight. The next one is going to be more about personal anecdotes, and I've noticed that like half of the people that bought this one have bought the next one, and I encourage everybody to buy all of them, because especially for this Holy Guardian Angel, I learned everything I know about what to expect from reading things like Lon Milo Duquette's understanding of the Holy Guardian Angel, and the Abramelin Ramble by Bill Heydrich, and talking to BJ Swain and Jason Miller and my contemporaries when we were Patrick Dunn and Logan Hillier and some of the greatest minds of my generation, man. You know, we all talked a long time about a lot of this stuff on message boards for years and hammered out a lot of things. And if it wasn't for other people going through attaining knowledge and conversation and stumbling along in the dark at the same time that I was, I wouldn't have known, I wouldn't have had the validation of my experiences that made me appreciate what I say now. You know, like I mentioned the smell. That was a secret amongst us for a little while, was that nobody talked about the smell. That was like this shared experience that like we would watch other people that were doing Samek or Abermel, and we would wait for that moment when they all were like, "Did you guys smell that smell?" And it's like, yeah, man, we all smelled it. And it's funny because like it was one of the consistent things, and it's um anyway, I don't mind talking about it now because it became pretty common knowledge. But it's one of the little things that I found useful. So I hope to see you guys there. There are ways to work with this entity that make it more effective. That will prepare you in your ways that I think will be useful to talk about. So that's all I got for now. Do have a good evening. I will talk to you next time. All right, everyone. Thank you very much. Sorry again about missing that little break there. Hopefully next week it won't do that. I will see you next time.